How do you navigate through these twin trends of disruption and digitalization and look at the investment opportunities?
Well, I think, it really is the kind of driver of this cycle, this idea that, that Amazon and others are coming and disrupting businesses, and we've really seen it play out. So it's one thing talking about the boogeyman, but if he hasn't turned up, it's something you can do another day. He has turned up and is causing havoc in the high street. And havoc in lots of other industries.
Travel not just the retail.
Went a long time ago.
Went a long time ago.
The idea of asking someone about holiday advice that hasn't been to this destination that you're interested in looks insane.
And it's happening in financial services?
Discuss. So
we'll come back to that.
Well, no, I think, again, the financial services industry looks like the £1, £4 coffee dichotomy. I think if you're delivering, something specialised and you're delivering what it says on the tin, then that's fine. If you're not, then the world all roads lead to ETFs and lower prices. Discuss. So I think that dynamic. I think what this cycle has been about, what smartphones and what the internet has done, has hugely empowered consumers. It's hugely. The reason that there's been such disintermediation is that in the past I didn't have visibility into pricing. I didn't have all the answers, and so I went to an expert, and that expert would dispense their advice for a price. And that expert could be a travel agent. It could be a minicab office that has both sides of the trade. It could have been a stockbroker based on where stockbrokers used to charge where they are today. So this disruption theme is just an extension of that. It's a generation of people that have been I suppose enabled with technologies that would have been for the reserve of governments and very large companies at any other time in our past.
Let's just go back to that digitalization theme. It does allow kind of old world companies to fight back. And you've seen that in other industries where digitalization has already happened. So for instance, the travel industry, people have begun to fight back. You've seen that in retailing. So Tesco's, for instance, is one of Britain's biggest online retailers, is fighting back. This does give them the opportunity for the kind of old world to kick back against the new world of technology, doesn't it?
I think that what digitalisation allows those companies to do is to manage their declines. I mean, I'm not referencing IAG or Tesco, because I don't know those companies, but I would say that the airline space is relatively unchanged. There are new entrants, but none of them are Amazon or Alibaba. I think that if you look at the freight market, and that's a market I know a little better, Amazon does own its own planes.
And a lot of logistics business.
And ultimately, the person or the business with the biggest network knows the most.
So that for you is the key. It's the network effect and the data that sits in the network.
It's unprecedented. How many companies in the world, Facebook, whatever it might be, companies with 1 billion, 2 billion customers generate enormous pools of data that really allow those platforms to know everything. And that knowledge is what allows you to deliver a better product, or the right product at the right time at the right price. And I just think that incumbent businesses are going to struggle with that. But your point isn't wrong, which is that you don't just lie down and die. I mean, you have to fight back. And if you're Tesco's, you've got a great business, a great brand, and you've got great cash flows, and you can use those cash flows to try and reinvent yourself, and hopefully it's just to kick the can, because I think that's what we're talking about in a lot of industries where what you really need is to be building a business today. I think this is just about the most fertile time for an entrepreneur to come along and be able to go find a customer, find a business, and platforms like Facebook, but payments companies like Stripe and others that are enabling businesses to get off the ground at a relatively small amount of capital relative to any other time in history. And I think that is what is so unique about the time today.
One of the side effects of this whole debate around technology, of course, is emerged in public policy, and there's the fact that we're all providing our information to the big digital platforms as our information, and what's being done with our information. So we've already seen a lot of controversy surrounding Facebook, for instance, and public policies push back into this area. And is this going to be the way in which effectively the tech industry slows down?
I think the pace of change has been furious. I think that when you think about the number of smartphones, 3 billion smartphones, just think about how fast these platforms like Facebook and others have grown. And it's a little bit like, again, I'm not a gardener, I'm not that into gardening, but they say that you have to prune things for them to grow better.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, those platforms haven't really been pruned. And it may well be that we're in that process now where Facebook needs to kind of go back and have a look and maybe just improve some of the bits and pieces that, some of the agents on the network, some of the stuff, take on a bit more of an editorial role. And that's not just Facebook, that will apply to all of the big platforms. There is with great power comes great responsibility. And I think we are in that
and a adaptation phase almost.
Well, it may slow down, the furious pace of change that we've seen, but I think there are other reasons to think about that too. I mean, some of the markets that are being attacked, by so successfully by these platforms, like say advertising, have already reached penetration rates that are, quite high. We're into the 30s and 40% of marketing. People do have Facebook campaigns and Google campaigns. I mean, these are major markets for advertising today. And so I think there's a number of things. We need to look at how smartphone growth is, decelerating. So much of the world has a smartphone, and so the easy growth for those smartphone platforms has probably come to an end. We need to look at how those very large platforms are beginning, if they are, to intersect with one another. Is Amazon beginning to make moves on Google by using more advertising in its own business model? If it is, perhaps it should expect a counter punch from
the two of them are certainly squabbling though.
There are big markets here still to sort out. Look at automotive, where Apple has would like to be there, Tesla wants to be there, Google wants to be there. These are very large markets where, as an investor, we're hugely excited. We haven't even started on automotive and what the tech companies can do to that market. We're just beginning to see what robotics could do with things like factory automation. We need to rethink the entire supply chain. I'm absolutely convinced that our children or our children's children will ask us what a sale was, and you'll say, "Oh, a sale is when a company made something that no one wanted and they had to reduce it in price." And the child will say, "But why did they make it?" And the answer is because we had to put it on a boat and ship it from somewhere, and by the time it arrived, nobody wanted that product. And in a world where we've moved, where front end of businesses have moved to kind of instant, I want to pay for something, I want to know something, I want it delivered yesterday, the supply chains of the world need to be reinvented. So we're at the intersection of a lot of very exciting change, but I don't disagree with you, which is that it may be that data is the new oil, but that right now we need to kind of go back and tidy up a bit and clean up.
This echoes what you said earlier about the supply chain.
I think that if you want to eliminate waste, there are lots of one of the big questions of this cycle has been why have where is the capex? Where's productivity?
Where's all that capital spending?
Right, and if you think about it, what many of these platforms have done, particularly the consumer-facing platforms, is change utilization rates. And so when you think about the really big markets of, where is the utilization ridiculously low? Airbnb is looking at people's spare rooms, where the utilization rate is 0, and if I can monetize that for you, that's interesting. But the elephant in the room is the automotive market, where cars are sat on driveways and used 4% of the time. And so that doesn't sound like a great solution. And
costs a lot of money.
Right, and they depreciate in value, and well, not all of them, but certainly the ones I've ever owned. And so there's definitely a problem that can be solved. And then you get to this really exciting bit. And again, there's lots of big drivers of this cycle. One of them is augmentation. People don't talk about it. They talk about autonomy. They talk about machines, robotics are going to change humans, all of that good stuff. That's where the copy is. But to me, this cycle has all been about augmentation. So I go to a doctor, a surgeon, who is able to use a Da Vinci system robot to do the job better. I go to TripAdvisor or Booking.com, not because I can't access the hotel without them, but because I want advice. I want to make sure I don't book a duff hotel. And so human decision making is being augmented by compute, by data sets, and by robotic systems. And I think that that's what's going to happen for the next however long. But at some point, artificial intelligence, which is really the kind of next big family of technologies, is going to change that, and we will move into a different world where cars can drive themselves, where computers can be autonomous and make decisions without human agents. And that's still some way away, but hugely exciting.